Welcome everyone to this live stream. We have a little bit dropped frames for some reason. Probably the not amazing crappy DOCSIS cable Vodafone internet. Just what you would expect. Let's make this 500. Actually I could make a recording just fine. Welcome everyone to this live stream. As much as flame war started already about political comments and global warming and such, I probably don't say something of that sort today. Getting Linux basically on the developer debug test. Actually, are we streaming? Should probably. What? 17% drop frames? Are you completely kidding me? This is so sad, this internet. It's ridiculous. Maybe. Anyway, how bad is it? So getting Linux, by the way, comments in the audience, first of all, welcome dear. If you could tell me if audio is halfway decent and how bad the frame drop is, because DOCSIS cable. So getting Linux on this development tool, by the way, that is this one. Right now both are running, as you see from the amazing nice LEDs here. Although somehow it could be nicer, but what? So, can't make this crappy internet up. How many drop frames? 6% drop frames. It's ridiculous. So yeah, better don't get cable internet, not DOCSIS, not from Vodafone, not in Germany. I guess we have live stream again. Is this even running here? This is paused. So, attempt number 2. Welcome everyone to this, as usual, failed live stream from DOCSIS cable internet. Let's reload this. So what I've done the last days, spending too much time on this cable, not cable, on this PS3 stuff. Hey, welcome everyone. Now the comments are loading again. So, internet is also overheating here. So it was way too many effort than I wanted or anticipated with the DECR-1400, because very few people have it apparently, and then Rebug, the custom firmware, wasn't very tested. The Rebug was working, but not with other OS. I tried everything, so it looks like it works and it just doesn't work. Chatted with those people there on Twitter. I would give them a personal shout out, but I always feel like this underground bit fiddling and firmware is usually maybe not as much to be shouted. But I'm totally thankful everyone on Twitter you know who helped me probably. And by the way, I hope we have audio right. So yeah, attempt number 2. How many drop frames? 6.4. So right now I'm rsynching here my old system, and I will, for those who are interested in details, and otherwise we can just hang around here, ask me everything. Otherwise I can tell you some details here about this booting stuff, and probably we should avoid political comments, as otherwise people get angry in the comments again. Probably shouldn't mention global warming and such fun stuff like that. Audio spec good, and finally fix this kernel bug at which kernel bug took Sudku. You probably mean AMD Ryzen or something, right? So yeah, What I'm on now, so I'm not on Rebug here on the tools, PS3 on this one by the blue light means we are running from an old-fashioned optical medium, DVD plus rewritable RW. Running some old-fashioned Linux, so basically nothing I tried booted, and I'm now on some very special, someone's private custom firmware edition 3.15, so not Rebug, long before the time from back in the day, just around when Sony took other OS away, and maybe allegedly it has a little bit of fiddling to maybe allow Linux running as game OS, or at least I think it should be, maybe theoretically, but right now I have huge problems with this kernel, kernel and petit boot, because when I boot this, when I load this, then I can't kexec this kernel execute other kernels. This kexec also not a PS3 thing, but this was one of the use cases when back in the day that was started to be used more. And what this means is to dynamically runtime execute another kernel. So you have one kernel running and then you load another kernel and execute into this. You can also use this on your x86 servers and embedded systems and PowerPC, maybe even Spark, not sure if it's tested and implemented there. So this is also how this was done on the PS3. So the bootloader, when you choose even the official Sony one before Sony took it away, I found this always a little bit strange, kind of, and I actually didn't really mess around so much. This is why the last 2 days gave me quite a hard time, because back in the day this was one of those things I ignored, and I just probably loaded Yellow Dog Linux even or something and just left those other OS boot glue bits on there, which back in the day were two. This was otherOS.bld and other.self or something, and the otherOS.self looks to me like a PlayStation program signed by Sony to execute the loading. So right now I'm running this little bit old-fashioned way, which actually no, I do not. First I thought this is really not amazing, and Webman, customer, nice to see fan curve you can run by the Webman, and on your customer and see the nice fan curve. Okay. Even with Linux running, and Tuxedco, okay, RX 540 GPU edition, okay, fun stuff. So this is fixed, right, Tuxedco, and so running this a more of old-fashioned way. So the only thing is this gives me huge headaches, because this very special, or the old Petit boot did not allow me to boot any of those scrolling by. So I'm running here rsync, I'm booted from optical media, some old-fashioned Linux ISO release. That is the only thing that I could boot right now. I tried, I really wonder why this boots. Maybe I was doing something stupidly wrong or something, because I have here all the old-fashioned kernels on there from all the original stuff on my FAT, which is this one. So I have here everything from 2, 6, 16, 18, something, 20, from when this was really new, and we had all of those. And none of them kexec successfully, so I couldn't leave this Petit bootloader environment. And yes, the CD boots strangely enough though, so this I don't quite understand why all my kernels don't boot, but maybe I've done something stupidly wrong. In any case, I have now something booting finally of, so this HDMI is the output from the DECR-1400, and this is also, do we have, okay, too many keyboards, do we have a second, this is slightly stupid. Yeah, so we have this output to prove this, and again, because we have HDCP, I've not yet, because I don't have an HDCP stripping thing. Let's focus, kind of focus jack, and if we pause this, I need to be careful not to terminate here the live stream. So the proxy PU info, so this already lists a much newer, we can also make this more aesthetically pleasing, I guess. There's the right bling here in the camera for the best scenes only live here on this channel. So this is newer revision, so we can actually SSH into the other one, that you see that this is not faked. Password is test, you don't need to break that. So you see this is entirely the same, even megahertz wise, 3.192 gigahertz surprisingly, but this revision is much newer, so the 65 I think versus 95 or even more nanometer silicon, so 5.1 and 16, and yeah, so not faking that fun stuff here. Let's also, so this one has 225 megabyte free, and this one has indeed, what, we don't have free in this, that is hilarious. So much to install environments, not CPU info. Then let's use mem info, so we have here indeed 473 or something of that sort free. Let's foreground the rsync again. So I'm right now rsyncing here the whole system, all my files with all the new and old system. Also we don't want to autofocus, we can also focus out here again. So yeah, rsyncing everything over there for continuing that fun development. And this is what we live stream here. And then I still need to figure out, there you see so many hours spent just to getting this stuff running. I got reminded about a couple of details. So the Petite boot, of course I knew, and the problem with this Petite boot, so Petite boot is this bootloader that even nowadays I think people use on IBM P series, maybe not the greatest fan. Yeah, okay, you say this is what I was hoping, that the Webman is only running in XMB. Yeah, so there are those hypervisor calls to get the temperature and set fan controls, and yeah, should try this. But by the way, I said this already the other day, I had the feeling this was extremely, well, extremely, no, not right now, actually they feel relatively similar, but no, they are under a little bit of load. But idle, I had the feeling the DECR-1400 feels, or 1400 feels significantly cooler, I would hope anyway. Right now, of course, two fat P3s are fighting here against the aircon and keeping our office warm. And so how this is, I wanted to share you some details how this is working, that you learn something. I did not really research it, so certainly I have not done all the bootloader stuff here in a decade, and even back in the day I ignored this. Why did I ignore this? Because it was always a little bit inconvenient to build, because you ideally would want to have some cross-compiled or not, but at least second set, because in this Petite boot all the libraries, user space, even a shell, SED, all the binaries are like an initRD. It's basically a larger initRD, and maybe I should actually build one with T2 now. Maybe I should try to, maybe I should actually, that would actually be a fun stuff. So a lot of fun stuff coming. By the way, I'm not any more intentionally hiding me myself, just that I don't have here the camera angle here in a better way in case you want to see here something more useful. But if you have any camera angle suggestions, just let me know. And chair is already on the lowest level. So how this works is that the Linux kernel is built in a special way, and that is this here. And this is the latest, so this is our data center, T2, latest and greatest. And to spread a little bit awareness, because most people don't know how this works and they just read something on forums, but also I find some of those forums posts a little bit irritating. Often they are a little bit, written by people obviously who do not understand everything, and they include steps that are misleading and false. For example, some tutorials really hilariously list to wipe the whole USB stick. So I have a collection of USB sticks here, obviously, for all the boot fiddling, and then they include steps like copy this file and run it in install other OS here in the XMB and stuff, and then they even write erase the whole stick, which is of course hilarious. I never in my life have done this, and the stick is full with even firmware of scanners, of other fun fiddling, so hundreds if not thousands of files on here. Christopher Street outside, so people need help in the sunshine, but global warming is not a thing. So, and you don't need to delete the stick for anything that I would know of, and other fun stuff, or copying stuff that's not needed, and instructions and that do nothing, like no operation instructions. So probably the problem is there are so many sources. There is official other OS that probably nearly nobody is using anymore. Then there was early other OS++. Then there was asbestos stuff with network booting in the very early days of breaking the security, and then there's rebug and maybe other fun stuff. So there are plenty of different things, and some of these things are incompatible, and even I myself, I didn't realize until the other day. I thought the other OS BLD and the DTB, what was that, DTB, let's put that back here, are interchangeable, but they are not, because basically I thought this DTB image.p3 is a new thing of other OS++, but it is actually a thing also used on other embedded boards and stuff. So what this is, when you build a Linux kernel, so more broad education, that is probably what you're here for. If you build a Linux kernel, you get a normal linked image that usually usually probably ELF, like this extended, what is it, extended, what was ELF standing for? ELF wiki, extendable link something format, or what was it? It's probably not pure, not. This is of course clicking on the first link here, and that's some garbage. But anyway, correct me in the audience. What do we have the audience for? Probably executable, executable in linkable format, of course. That is a new format. And so normally, so you have a compiler like GCC. Thanks for posting it now. Probably too much streaming delay. And so you run the compiler on all the files. You need sometimes you need some architectural options, like how to lay out stuff in memory, not to use certain, for example, not using single instruction multiple data and stuff. And comments in the audience, we check that in a second. And how's even, so then you normally link this together. Usually this, even, why do I say this? Not only if you want to hack on this kernel, but also if you want to write your own hobby kernel, like our DOS stuff and more low-level stuff. And maybe if we do a microkernel, maybe we should port to the PS3 also, just for the fun of it, certainly for the into the Octane. But you link this together, and then this is usually what the VM Linux is about, what you get then, and then usually the Linux kernel has, and that is unfortunately the famous thing, there are 12 standards, and there are like 12 shitty standards, so you invent a 13th standard, and then you have 13 shitty standards. Why is my YouTube stuff complaining about something here? It's not receiving enough video, maintains smooth streaming, such stewards, whatever. And yeah, this is also a little bit the case here. This is a little bit inconvenient with all the embedded boards, also on the ARM side. That is why for all the ARM boards you need your dedicated kernel, because previously that was statically compiled plus all the different executable formats. So then you often have, even on x86, you have VM Linux and bset image, which is a compressed kernel, and the same here. So here are various set images that are like compressed images. We can also take a look on the makefile for that. And what this DTB image is a device tree. Device tree usually was provided by the open firmware on Apple machines and other IBM PowerPC machines. The device tree is similar to ACPI, not similar, but similar in concept, just providing a device tree list of devices so that your kernel knows where in your Apple machine is which PCI device or non-PCI device, old-fashioned I/O device. And on machines like the PS3 that are not built on open firmware, the Linux kernel developer anyway preferred to have a device tree around to enumerate the devices, and that is what this device tree image is here, so that you see this in the make file, I think. Should be on here. So device tree DTB image, and you see this is not only a PS3 thing but also Maple, Power NV, P series. No, actually no, this is not PS3. Holly takes this other back, but here also EP405 device tree blobs, and yeah, EP something. And so this is in build here with these tools. Sometimes not the most easily readable, but this is wrapping here VM Linux and maybe potentially an init.rd. So DTB image is a set image with an embedded device tree blob as written here in the comments, and then it's using some tools here to clobber this together to compile the device tree. So the device trees are probably here somewhere, device trees. And then the P3 one, it's actually pretty tiny. And then it's compiling here. I think that, yeah, this is pretty tiny. This is, not sure if something is adding this there more at runtime, but you see here just the CPUs and chosen Sony something. So I'm not really sure if, yeah, also bootman block from LV1 and stuff like that. And then, because I tried booting this DTB image, just renaming this to other OS, and this obviously didn't work. This is why only yesterday I found out that they are not, oops, am I leaking keys? Probably shouldn't leak keys here live on YouTube. And so the other OS, other OS, BL, what, where is this not, where is this coming from? Other OS, BL, wrapper. Let's also move this slightly. So that is slightly different in that it is additionally, just need to fine tune my layout here. That is additionally wrapping the kernel. And this other thing, so with this kind of stuff I didn't bother back in the day because I wanted to run Linux, implement the T2 glue, create ISO images. I was already busy with this, also with keeping Spark and the Apple stuff and everything alive, Spark, ARM and whatnot. So I was not necessarily very interested in this firmware stuff. This is hurting me now and coming back here full circle, like in 2019 when very few people still probably maintain this. I think PS3 is already mostly dead in Gentoo Debian, so probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks a little bit like the last man standing here in this kind of stuff. And other OS BLD. So it is documented here, and maybe for the fun I would maybe try to write some conversion script to convert this, if it's possible. I think it should maybe possible to convert this back and forth. Although on the other hand there are probably very few people, but raise your hand. But I guess from all the people who are waiting here for PS3 stuff, you're all probably running Rebug, I guess, that people run other OS++, the first iteration, that like me on the FAT, are probably very rare. And then even older custom firmware stuff that the people originally used to free some hex keys there from the encryption stuff, even more rare, like on the DECR-1400 here. because this is i6. This looks, from what I've seen, this is like original. So like, although it is modified, it's original Sony other OS. And this is, as documented here, P3's loader. So this is the original Sony stuff from back in the day. Slightly different in that this is a loader supports loading a gzipped binary image from flash ROM to the address 0. So the PS3 other OS glue in the XMB is loading the Linux kernel, probably, I guess, uncompressing this, loading this Yep, people having fun in the sunshine. Loader then, what is so, it's a little bit strange here that this is address hex 100. Enters the system reset vector address 100. This is why I think so this offset here to construct this, because it needs the entry point at address reset entry point at address 100 hex. This is why this boot wrapper overlays this and arranges this here in the binary image, because normally the kernel has something at address 100, right? So you have your normal kernel image there, and there is something usable, vital to the kernel. Obviously you can't just overwrite this. So this is why this is copied out here with DD or something of that sort. Skip overlay run command DD here, I think DD. And so it's copying this area out of the kernel area there, and overwriting this 512 bytes from offset 100 hex occupied by this boot wrapper. Boot wrapper probably is this early boot up code stuff here, and constructs a final ROM image 512 bytes offset from the system reset kernel. So I guess with that they mean they have reserved an area system reset kernel to construct the final ROM image is copied to the boot wrapper placeholder at symbol system reset kernel. The 512 of the boot wrapper entry code is then copied to address 100. At runtime, the boot wrapper program copies the data from system reset kernel back to address 100. Yeah, so I think this is probably a placeholder. We probably could double check this. There you see, then you try something, it doesn't boot, it just results in a black screen. Yeah, here's PS3.c maybe. Oh no, here's head system reset. It's probably this. This is maybe the wrapper, I would assume, or something. Let's also startup. Let's take a look on both PS3. So boot wrapper support, prep command line, reposition read, platform init here, and then we have this here, this PS3 head, and system reset overlay first stage entry copies the 512 bytes at symbol reset overlay to offset 100. This symbol must occupy 512 or less bytes. Switch to 32-bit mode. Thread number, secondary, primary, delays, placeholder for the kernel reset vector, the boot wrapper. Yeah, I think this is probably intentionally left entry, and by this wrapping code copied build boot wrapper build script copies 512 bytes from offset to the ROM. We read this already, must occupy. This is the same command. So there you see why is there so much esoteric startup glue stuff for all the platforms, and then you sit here with, I literally tried to boot, I tried to kexec over 20 kernels, none of them worked. I tried so many different DLT device tree images and stuff, and so people on Twitter told me, yeah, but this must have worked, but maybe this not, but this, and yeah, so when you wonder why was there not an amazing video, yeah, I was busy trying to get Linux booting. So again, maybe not my time best spent, but yeah, we should probably not get into Greta Thunberg, whether I like them or not, because then people freak out about political comments here and then they unsubscribe and don't give us thumbs up. But thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, so there you see all the platforms, also Octane and why for the Octane and the Origin 200 and Origin 2000, they all have, this is also a little bit crazy in the MIPS kernel range of, can you make space here a little bit, PS3 for, no, PS3 doesn't want to show the big SDN Octane browser today. So, I read this comment out already, don't double post. Yeah, so there you see when, this is also a little bit, I find this slightly annoying. I understand why some of those hacks are necessary, although honestly the Sony developer, when they already provided other OS support, they could have done this maybe a little bit less hacky. I really don't quite understand or why it had to be in that way that they have this address 100. I don't, why not some entry point at the beginning, all this copying in the middle, but maybe 100 hex is an entry point and reset of PS3 stuff in general. But anyway, maybe it would have been better to reserve all the beginning, and but I don't know, maybe. Anyway, if we try to write example kernel on MIPS and Spark and stuff, just for the proof of concept, we will see what we run into there. Let's check how our copy is going. Yeah, so rsync is running. So this rsync is running forever because it is literally rsyncing multiple systems. Because I have there not only my very legacy system, you see there is scrolling by, maybe you can read this or not, new 32, I have there new, this are the systems that I built. First, this probably which one of SV had 2 years. So first I built a new 64-bit, this is the latest and greatest T2 system from earlier this year or whenever that was. And then just for the performance sake, I built the 32-bit system optimized for cell or something of that sort. And I rsync them. I could actually skip this, maybe we skip this here, because I'm not sure if I will maybe lose this already. Let's rsync, so this is rsync. We can also zoom this a little bit more if this is maybe readable, but that people don't freak out about political comments in Linux live streams. Maybe leave, if you already ask how I like them, maybe write how you like this, and I didn't make comments and you made the comments. Little nice hacky workaround for that. So this is rsync, that you learn something. I usually use rsync for everything, amazing tool, remote sync. So compressed, also fun fact, this rsync supports so many characters here on the command line that if you type something random, it will probably accept this and do something something stray, runaway, random nonsense, because I mistyped here. Why? Because, wrong keyword. Because of American versus German layout, and of course it was running this with Y, although I wanted Z4, I hope at least Z is compressed. So archive, recursive, also maybe this is just out of habit, probably archive already includes recursive, but whatever. Verbose, T is probably preserved timestamps, I guess, or something of that sort. P is partial and progress, I think. And X is not to iterate or run into other file systems. This is not to rsync proc and this and /dev and all this fun stuff. And then sparse, I think it's probably not included. Yes, you see so many characters and then you're not even sure if sparse is included in this, but I guess not. And sparse is specially treating sparse files in case sparse files, those files with holes in the middle, not regular byte streams, but having a hole in the middle there, over SSH. And yeah, so not only exclude swap file, but also exclude, which by the way is fun fact, not on the camera, also exclude, what did I want to exclude? Exclude new. This is the good thing of naming stuff a little bit so that it usually isn't a file in your file system. Password was what have we done now? Unknown option. Yeah. Usually on YouTube only this fun stuff. Password was task. Don't need to break it. What do you mean with resetting the PS3? You can downgrade your PS3 depending on the PS3 model you have. There's a minimum version. Check the tool you could use to to see the lowest firmware. Yeah, I did this already from the Rebug tools. It showed me 260, I think, which is probably the normal downgrade version of DECR. Something. The FAT I have there should probably be much lower to downgrade, but I don't want to touch this because the reason, if I touch this, it only causes me work of non-working stuff, and then I rather keep this, never touch a running system, right? This is why on, but although I will probably, if the Rebug people, I dumped them already some vFlash, and unless I help them and try to test some Rebug versions, that not really sure if that would wipe my Linux. Maybe, maybe not. But so I installed this. So this is I wanted to say. So this is not the worst thing, right? So this is testing other OS++ with the custom original Jeff Leroy something. And so this is testing the new style, which should probably, if you have this Rebug at home, be that generation of booting, and this is the original Sony, which actually is not too bad of a thing. And this is actually, although I would want to test some Rebug versions, I'm not really wanting to mess and reinstall this constantly. Although actually I could take the hard drive out, maybe I just, should this probably maybe work, I guess. Anyway, so how did I install this? I installed this with the usual USB stick. I just installed other OS, the other OS self and other OS, what was it, BLD or something, BLT. And that gives me a petite boot. As I said in the beginning, this petite boot, this did not KExec any other kernel, which is really a huge problem if I can't boot my kernel. So now I rsync this, I rsync the entire content of my legacy old-fashioned FAT here on the tool, and then I hope I can boot this. Right now I've booted a real optical media there that probably is mounted. Probably can't eject this, right? I would guess now. And so I only booted this, I didn't install this. I don't want this old Linux on there. I want to continue with the latest and greatest. So not only latest and greatest GCC and Linux kernel, where we still have plenty of bugs to fix. Also, I intentionally have booted a very old kernel here on my FAT, because the new kernel has some strange memory allocation issue. After a couple of Ethernet packets, the Jelic Ethernet driver can't send new network packets anymore. That is certainly super annoying. I couldn't rsync this here. And don't delete everything, that's almost ruined a movie. What do you mean by that? Anyway, so long story short, I'm getting there. We have already something running. I only need to figure out what are now the differences. Why do all my old kernels, or new and old, any of my 20 or 20 plus kernels, none of them KExec? And yeah, this is the fun stuff of a developer. You only wanted to make RSX acceleration greater again, and then you spend all your free time trial and error installing. And yeah, also documentation here. Of course, the original people who have done here all the brute forcing of freeing here the firmware keys and bits. This was, of course, a whole winter work of dumping there, even maybe with hardware soldering, or I don't know what, maybe one day. Not sure if they still want to share their bits there, but I could imagine this certainly involves opening them and soldering there on them maybe, and this kind of stuff, all of which I don't really want to do today or is this month, because we have so much other stuff. I rather want to write a microkernel, but this is probably some topic for another video to keep them short and brief and whatnot. For some fun fact, we have less drop frames so now. So we are getting there. You see there are some more Linux rsyncing of, yeah, rsyncing files that I don't really need because it's old crap. But yeah, next I need to get this really booting, booting my own stuff, and then I really hope, fingers crossed and thumbs pressed here in German style, we press thumbs, and because I really hope this has, because I'm right now not sure what kind of modifications this custom firmware has that it really allows us to access the RSX set. The whole point of this exercise, having more memory to develop more comfortably, more RSX hardware acceleration, would be a little bit time wasted if this custom firmware, which right now, again, this is right now the only custom firmware that even allows me to boot Linux at all on the DECR-1400, and if this is not patched in a way to allow us access RSX, that would be a little bit time wasted. Also, I know the firmware Sony changed this in previous times. There was this firmware vulnerability that we could access also MP AVI files that we rsync for. Anyway, wasting our time. So not only do I not know what kind of RSX hacks this includes in terms of running a ScameOS, I also don't know if Sony changed the layout. They sometimes have changed the layout because in 2.10 territory we already had in 2009 or 2010 access to the RSX, and they changed the layout there of memory mapping to avoid this kind of memory mapped I/O DMAing there around. But yeah, so much stuff to do, and it certainly looks good, right? It's just a little bit. By the way, if any one of you have want to donate something, not only on Patreon to support this work, because I don't really need to do this for myself, right? I've done this a year ago. I only wanted to see if this still works, because Debian, Gentoo, all the projects mostly look dead. The only thing that people still keep installing is a Red Dragon something Linux, which in my opinion you should probably not really keep installing anymore, because it's super outdated, super old, not maintained. It would really be more useful if you install our T2 release here that is state of the art, and you can emerge from source all the latest and greatest. Not because I want more T2 users, just because it's so much newer. And I already satisfied my interest there in finding out, yeah, Red Ribbon, exactly. So I satisfied already my weird interest in finding out, yeah, somehow I have the feeling the chat is super delayed though. Maybe I should stream with lower latency again. I find it slightly annoying that this chat is so delayed. And yeah, if you use the T2 release, which I have also on here, then you get totally new stuff that should most likely be, anyway, if you want hardware isolated RSX, then anyway you need this sooner or later, and anyway, latest and greatest. And also, if you want to contribute patches, I read already some people sending stuff in. That was totally amazing. Thumbs up for that. And if you have stuff to spare, each dollar or euro counts on Patreon to motivate me, because, as I said, my weird satisfaction here is already done, mostly with resurrecting this from the basement. If you want to motivate me to spend even more time on hardware isolated RSX stuff, all those donations are welcome. Only that allows me to spend really so much more time here with this. And aside from this, if you want to donate hardware, if you have a slim 2500 that is custom firmwareable, if you want me to test this, or the original DECR-1000, I saw already on Twitter, people have this from old-fashioned custom firmware stuff. If any one of those is listening and says, yeah, I don't really use it, it's just collecting dust here, would be amazing to show on YouTube, fiddle around with that. Why do I say this? Someone commented I should get a slim. Yeah, I will likely myself not get any of this here, more than this, unless someone wants to donate something. It's probably more than enough to test with this. And then I rather also make videos about other fun content. And yeah. Probably, so some light, people always ask, what can you do? You can already run some light emulators, right? As long as, of course, right now we have a little bit graphic corruption, but you don't need to run this hardware acceleration. I know why we have this hardware acceleration artifacts. And yeah, happy to read that you have a CEC 2500 with Red Ribbon on it. You can already run emulators, of course, especially if you don't run in full HD. The problem is if we don't have hardware acceleration, the cell broadband engine, the PowerPC core is not the most high performance. It has a very long pipeline, not very speculative. It's in order, I think, and stuff. So at 3.2 gigahertz, it's not the most high performance. I see that this didn't recognize this. It should actually, but maybe we should work on this another day. And so if you want to run emulators, you can do this. And if we get more hardware acceleration stuff to working, then of course this allows for much more fancy emulators. And the high performance emulators, very theoretically, the problem is only the memory limitation, right? Otherwise, you could even theoretically, I guess, run Mac on Linux if you want to run some old-fashioned Mac OS on there just for the fun of it. But with 256 megabyte in the regular consumer editions, that is not amazing. That could be a fun thing with QEMU, or we could theoretically even try to see if that works already, or if we need to tweak the kernel for KVM-like virtualization or Mac on Linux. And then if we get to more hardware acceleration, then you could really run some more fancy emulators. People ask for Nintendo 64 emulators. That is probably in the realms of possibility, but for that, I think what I saw, the famous, more wide used Nintendo N64 emulators use just-in-time compilation, and those only support x86, 32 and 64-bit, and maybe ARM in the meantime, something like that. So not really sure if it can run without JIT. If it runs without JIT, certainly slow, but I anyway wanted for the YouTube stuff do a JIT for RISC-V just to practice RISC-V. I anyway have some broader plans but this is all stuff for future videos. It's interesting to see so many people tuning in here. Leave me in the comments or in the chat right now what you are you all here only for P3, because do we have right now 23 people, I guess, maybe. And are you all only here for the P3 or general Linux stuff? Because why I have not done P3 for a couple of months is also because I said this already multiple times, I didn't want this to become a P3 channel, right? So this week, of course, with this new stuff in town, it's a little bit much P3 and probably not very satisfying for all the non-P3 folks. But very theoretically, I also wanted to do more stuff. I always said this development and research you finance with YouTube AdSense, so more JIT. There you also see so stuff like PC Emulator has a JIT, a code recompiler, I think they call it. Of course, huge things in LLVM, Java, V8, from Google, Chrome and Firefox, and so many just-in-time compilers. And then we need another one for a Nintendo 64 emulator somehow. Of course, there are tiny JIT implementations. For example, Lua JIT is super small. I think other people use at least parts of this Lua JIT for other fun projects. And it would somehow be cool if there would be one tiny JIT for this tiny JIT stuff. But I understand many things. The problem is often, I understand that there are so many implementations because they are always very special. So the Nintendo 64 emulator is of course very specifically drafted and tuned for that, just that. And then we also have the other emulators that are very like PC emulator that was recently even rewritten by the author for higher performance and features and such. And yeah, there you see performance throughput, not the very highest. I wonder slightly, can we maybe, does it have job control? It has job control. Does it have top maybe, or oh, it has top. I wonder slightly what the CPU load would be here in this one. but system idle, actually this is pretty idle, so then I wonder if this is mostly, there you also see the 470. It's of course pretty cool to have such a high memory PS3. Never in my life did I think I ever end here with such a special edition PS3. I wonder if the throughput here, the slowness of the rsync is mostly actually the disk I/O. I said this, not only do we need to finish porting this in the latest Linux kernel to really work, there are changes. I have the feeling that maybe that could support multiple like tagged I/O. So yeah, 11%. Maybe we can make this storage driver for the PS3, depending on the firmware. We get some tag in there, so we submit a command. I said this already in the other live stream. We submit a command, and somehow I think the Linux kernel right now, or historically always only submitted one command, got the interrupt, submitted one command. That is of course not very high performance. And from what I fiddled around there, I think it looked like it is possible to submit more than one command, because due to the changes with this multi-queue code that I still need to finish for the running as GameOS with this other OS++ method, we have multiple storage regions. This is why this doesn't work yet with latest kernels. Still need to tweak this all the time, and this is why I built up here the testing. If we want to support PS3 for the next decade to come, we need here some testing infrastructure and efficient means of testing stuff automatically and working on this. And maybe this would really result in a higher throughput here. Right now I'm running anyway very old kernel anyway, whatever the kernel was. Besides, well, actually this kernel is also super old here because I'm booting a very old, what you know, you name? Yeah, 2.6, okay, not 2.6.31, but relatively mostly old. Anyway, amazing that so many people tuned in. Let's check the comments for a second. We could live stream more. In a way, it's of course interesting to see relatively quite some people tuning in there. Totally thankful for all of you. Totally, you guys rock, of course. Brocolist writes, he's there for the PS3, low-level GPU coding, general Linux tech talks in one to learn. That is amazing. Missed the beginning, hobby on the PS. Yeah, so these are both running right now. You see two PS3, but you can rewind. It's already super long, this stream. Best rewind and share, like, and subscribe. PS3 related sites, but it's general technology stuff. And in fact, the DVD drive is only bootable on the first reboot from GameOS to petit port for me. Subsequent reboots does not want to boot from the Blu-ray drive. Interesting. Didn't. Brocolist writes he got T2. Actually, Brocolist, are you the one who sent me the patches rediff for the multi-storage thing? Maybe you can also help each other, right? Then I don't need to teach each and every one the low-level basics. If Brocolist could help the ML Lean 2004 with booting there, maybe you messed something up in terms of file naming, copying something from the ISO to the stick or something, because for me on USB stick just copied this worked, and apparently for Brocolist I think also. Yeah, also, so it's for me a little bit frustrating always. I had this running, and then a decade later you unpack this and like everything you download from the internet, nothing works, which is of course, yeah, I understand the tool is special. I really also want to continue. I was holding this already in the cameras with the rendition Verity low-level code, but this is also a little bit more. Really would like to have this kind of Rosetta code like of repository of driver stuff and such. So Victor, we are rsyncing my old system, my historic vintage, all my old stuff to the new tool. Finally, after I've got something booting here, so two PS3s, our little growing PS3 cluster. And to check 20, do we still have to check 25,000? So the problem is, Also, this is super huge, right? So I installed already an SSD. I have here a company stock Samsung Pro 9500 something, Serial ATA series, 500 gigabyte, and then use the Sony tools there, format the device. So 10 gigabyte to game OS because I don't game, and all the rest to other OS. So we have here, of course, 490 megabyte of SSD storage. Also in this one, in the fat one, of course, also SSD. And yet this is, I was thinking, but actually, by the way, maybe we ruin our performance here with the frame buffer now that I think about this, because the scrolling is unfortunately super slow, as we all know, which is a shame. Really annoying that the frame buffer scrolling is so slow always. I would not have implemented it like that. Anyway, what was I about to say? So I was thinking, and yeah, so I have to say, so this PS3 is super full, my original FAT, not only so it has the original system, it has a new 32-bit, new 64-bit system, and then it has files from me and some other people in the company, because even an intern back in the day, an intern used this. So I used this as kind of workstation, and once when we had an intern, I know very well, a friend of mine was intern at our company nowadays, then he went to work at Microsoft, so much to your friends intern at your company, and then they moved to Microsoft. Fun life stories. But so he was also working on this, all his files of all this code that he has done on that project back in the day, still on there. So plenty of stuff I was thinking, which, yeah, scrolling on the frame buffer, as I just pointed out, doesn't help. Just the device format class, what? Anyway, I need this to rsync. It's probably not the most interesting to watch this scrolling by. Jaguar CPU is fastest, not micro. Architecture, what? Jaguar, I'd argue the P3 cell is twice the speed of PS5. We could benchmark that another day, but I don't have a PS4 and I'm not really planning to buy one. I also don't think we have quite some AMD stuff, but we don't have just that AMD class CPU. The thing is why I thought I get a PS4 just for the Linux installation, YouTube goodness, but on the other hand I have already so many machines including Octane and such, it's probably better I just spend my time on MIP, Spark, PowerPC, all the esoteric stuff that we, especially big endian stuff that we like so much, and not buy even more dust collecting stuff, because it's already a challenge to keep up to date with all this fun stuff here. As you see, huge effort. And x86 we have already enough, right? This is why the PS4 doesn't really interest me so much. This was interesting because back in the day Apple stopped PowerPC, and then I didn't understand the performance as much in detail back in the day. So we had the G5, dual core G5, 2 gigahertz, and back in the day I thought maybe this is similar performance. Of course, well, with the cell, the SPEs, of course, this has some quite high performance if you program it normally, but of course the lack of memory and lack of hardware acceleration was of course not helping. So of course this was not really a replacement for a workstation class G5 that we still have here. Probably also should switch on another day again. But if you use SPEs, of course, for your special, again, they need to be specially programmed with another compiler, not PowerPC, special instruction multiple data. Maybe another day we will do this here for the YouTube educational fun again. But first we need to get this working again. You see, stuff is still scrolling by. And yeah, totally amazing that so many people watch this. But I probably turn off the live stream. Thank you so much for watching. It is, again, huge shout out to everyone who helped me. There were a couple of people, you know who you are, on Twitter who helped me to get this even booting. If it would not be for the custom firmware people who do this every other day for the rebug and other fun stuff, and some of them who have done this for a decade and do this every day. Totally amazing. You guys rock. Thank you so much for helping me out here. Otherwise, I probably most likely would not have Linux running on the developer tool DECR-1400 already. Still need to finish this though, obviously. Yeah, so this hard drive, not sure if it is visible on camera, maybe not, I guess. So this hard drive LED quite flashing there from the FAT where we are syncing from. This one writing not as much, although this is obviously not in camera. The problem is if I move it here too much, then easily pull the cables out with our flying wire methods here. So yeah, this one is constantly reading, while of course it's accumulating this in buffer caches and only flushing this out every now and then. I hope I didn't make a mistake. I think I formatted this RiserFS. Maybe the original one was. Maybe we can check this actually here. Suspend this and SSH over. I wanted something slightly more modern. I don't really like this X family too much. Not CPU info. So let's see, that is mounted to... Maybe I should have grabbed this here. Yeah, this is X4. I wonder, so actually, but I reformatted this, of course, because I took the original hard drive out when I other OS++ this. And yeah, so X4. I hope Petit Boot does not disappoint me in being able to access this, but I hope for the best. Anyway, we are coming to an end with this. Do we have anything newsworthy? I like your project. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for watching. And I really, so what is my project? So, but basically I could continue talking here. My wife is right now not in Berlin anyway, so we could also talk here all night. Just that I'm not sure if that is the most efficient way to build a YouTube channel, and I have also some other work to do, especially as I neglected my work duties here the last 2 days. If I would not be my own manager, I might have thrown me out of the company for playing too much with the PS3. I actually have some important project details to finish here also that I should probably get back to, but otherwise we could check here or chat here all day. Because what my plan would be, the microkernel dream and microkernel, that's what I said this already before, I will most likely want to create some project of a repository with this code stuff, maybe even so a repository like architecture, then like the CPUs, PowerPC, x86 and stuff, and drivers like, we have this already, Verge, Voodoo, of course, right now this is bare low-level proof of concept code for DOS, but ideally, I would want to write this so that you could simply, like, for those who know this, like headers, like C++ headers, this header-only projects, like header-only setlib compression, header-only JPEG decompression and stuff. So ideally, I would want to make not the most high-performance drivers, but like the most minimally working, useful drivers, like for the Verge, for the Voodoo, for the Matrox, maybe one day even for NVIDIA. And then that you can reuse this, like one header, of course, usually then with some proof of concept C program, like low-level DOS example, low-level, theoretically we could even make an X11 XOR example, but more likely like proof of concept testable on DOS, just for the proof of concept test state of it, and then yet use it in our microkernel example. Very theoretically, we could also, or maybe for testing, we even make this. You can, on those new machines, what we did the other day with the Razer Core, that we still have there with Thunderbolt, you can IOMMU this, and nowadays access from user space in Linux, so that you can from user space program PCI drivers, and maybe we could make it so that you can plug in your Voodoo card, your Matrox card, your Sound Blaster, other more modern stuff. Ideally, of course, everything that this becomes a Rosetta code project, also for the RSX. But first, and yeah, so theoretically we could make this even like header only, that you can even use it for homebrew, right? And the homebrew, I need to check with the homebrew people. My hope is that I looked around there already a little bit. They have homebrew code for the RSX. I'm not sure how advanced and how well working that is. My hope would be that it can do 3D. And you could even share this, right? I don't quite understand why this is not done more often. That like really code reusability. Of course, there are limits how far you can bring header-only stuff. But I think this would be totally cool, not only for the PS3, but also I said I started already, right? It's not like Vaporware. We have working S3 Verge code. We have working Voodoo code. We have working Sound Blaster DMA code for sound output. And theoretically, maybe we could even, with this example, so very theoretically, I would also want to have a very small example kernel, like just some, of course not a whole Linux kernel. In the beginning, anyway, it will be a hobby, right? Not something serious like Minix or Linux. But very theoretically, it would be super cool if we could make it so that we could even have a bare metal demo running like a Hello World example for Spark, MIPS, so PS3. Of course, not a whole kernel, right? Just a repository of this is the linker stuff that you need to, how you link it for running it in open firmware on PowerPC Mac. This is the startup stuff for the PS3 and other OS or other S++ and stuff. That would be, and of course this would not be a whole operating system like Linux, just like the bare minimum workable example that you can reuse if you want to use it. And maybe we, depending on how far we can build this YouTube channel and finance it with Patreon and YouTube, because sometime in between I need to earn money to pay the rent and buy food and stuff. But theoretically, this could be built up for a more functional kernel, but yeah, this is also, anyway, so yeah, this is still scrolling by that I probably should switch over, that this maybe are things faster. And you have made your own Linux for PS3, yeah, so this was already running. I did not newly make this for this YouTube fame. I've done this already a decade ago. We were running already in 2009 or 10 running. So this is what is running. I can even log in and show this again. So pause this, SSH to Z, and password is test. And here's a, you can also zoom this in here. Maybe one day I need to put here roles on Z and focus this. This is from, not done just for YouTube, but etc version. This is maybe even Rock Linux, not sure, or is it already, no, this is already T2. So so yeah, 2007, not making this shit up. So this is a decade old Linux. So I've done this, I made PowerPC Linux. We also should continue look, let's see, bookmark, edit, no, thank you, wrong keyboard. Foreground. So yeah, 2007, actually this stuff is older than I even remembered. And yeah, it's not a new thing, it's just that I had this in the basement when Sony took other OS away from us. I didn't want it to lose it, and also it wasn't the fastest and cell programming projects were over. I had other stuff to do. So it's not a new thing, we have always done this. Very theoretically, you could probably theoretically use our very old T2 releases, not that I have tested it too often. The only thing I've never done, as I said in the beginning of this live stream, I never bothered too much about the bootloader stuff, so I've never built my own petit boot because, reasons, other stuff to do. But I think maybe theoretically the T2 ISOs from a decade ago should maybe bootable. I'm not sure if I tested this often because I usually tested booting on PowerPC. But yeah, so 2007 and today, that is the T2 stuff that I've done for 20 years. And yeah, you can T2 release, latest T2 release, and below on the other YouTube video somewhere. What else did we had here on the audience? If you get the latest, let us know if you get the latest DC rebug working. Did you publish something? So the latest did not work, right? Unless you are one of those developers who published something. I got a Twitter message? Let's see. No, not on this one apparently, unless I missed something. But as I said, I'm not too sad about running this special flavor edition custom firmware here, because it allows me to maybe test more old and new API, because this is using Sony other OS BLD and this is using DTB image, something not all. As much as I would want to test their rebug releases, I'm also not the most thrilled to lose my data. Who will sock others? Let's see. Only be case for specific SIMD workload. Jagger has a built-in GPU. Don't forget. Already finished. Built-in GPU. PS4 runs like PS3, because PS4 Jaguar is slow. So whatever, slower, so I will do. And what about unlocking 8th SPE? So I've never tried this. Until recently I didn't even know that this is possible. And I'm not sure if I read the other day. Also I'm right now these days not doing SPE programming, right? So right now I don't want to brick them. Also, I read that if you unlock it, so a decade ago I didn't know that it's possible, not even sure if it was known back in the day. I always thought they are like sometimes defective and you just better don't activate them anyway. And I read from warnings on all the wikis that if you activate this and you are unlucky and it doesn't work, it can brick or will brick or most likely not work at all then. But yeah, I need to check maybe with those geniuses there of that magic sort. And our Linux. So back in the day, of course, I was, but PSP. So I need to check with those magic masters there if I can. For example, it probably means if it doesn't boot, I need to attach some EEPROM programmer and reverse it. And so if we mostly don't use it right now, it's not worth it to risk it, but time will show. If it's doable with an EEPROM programmer, maybe I will open one of those or try with my Slim at home first or something. Why my Linux? So I was developing Linux, right? Rock Linux and Zen-T2, and I don't use other people's Linux if we have our own Linux, right, for testing. And I know the environment. Our Linux is also super vanilla, open source upstream. So I would not want to use another Linux. Usually they are more patched and so on, and it makes no sense for me, right? If we develop and provide the means for cross-compiling embedded stuff with boards and ARM PowerPC, we need to test this, and I don't really have the time and whatsoever. Makes no sense for me to use other people's Linux. Nowadays, of course, this release is of course optimized. 64-bit kernel with a 32-bit user space. It should most likely be a little bit faster. The only thing, I think the original Sony PlayStation binaries on GameOS, I think they run in 64-bit mode. They run like 32-bit integer registers, pointers in 64-bit mode, similar to x32. On x86 you can run i386 old-fashioned 386 32-bit or AMD 64, like 64-bit mode, and then there is this esoteric and not very often used in between, this X32 that is running in 64-bit mode but with 32-bit pointers only, providing for applications like normal applications, not needing more, addressing more than 4 GB of memory, some advantage in integer or pointer heavy workloads. And very theoretically we could do the same on PowerPC, not only for the P3 that similar to Sony. Sony is of course doing this because you have only 256 megabyte plus a VRAM, so you never have more like 1 gigabyte. So this is why Sony developers probably very well aware that it makes no sense to run with 64-bit pointers. At least that is what my understanding, what I heard, that a very kind of special environment there in GameOS. Very theoretically we could do the same for Linux. Not really sure if someone has ever done this for PowerPC, but theoretically this could yield a little bit higher performance. But nowadays my understanding is there is nobody like Gentoo, Debian and Arch and such. Probably you don't find another Linux anyway for PowerPC, right? So then if in case you wanted to run Linux. But anyway, as we do our own Linux, I certainly, Debian people already call our project unsuccessful one-man distribution, so I certainly don't want to help Debian people test and develop their Debian Linux when they already are so friendly to ourselves. And yeah, it's also efficiency, right? We have the stuff, I'm used to it, it's super vanilla upstream sources, in my opinion totally amazing, but leave me in the comments below as usual what you think about this T2. It's of course a little bit like Gentoo, built from source with targets, maybe more cross-compile unless there's some cross-compile Gentoo special edition in the meantime. But in any case, each and every one their own stuff. You can of course also use T2 and install some Gentoo second, third, whatever stage. make FPS measured for. What do you mean with this? Is it hard to FPS? Not sure what you mean. No, I'm not part of the Rebug Pro. That's interested in knowing if you get it working, but it's all good. Want to spend your time on other content. Yeah, so right now the latest versions do the latest versions boot, but only to GameOS, right? So to Rebug. And there is an option to install other OS, but it doesn't work for me. It's trying, but it's not working. It's not booting anything. But I'm contacting with those people. The only thing, I guess, if I flash a new custom firmware, I probably need to be careful. Not sure if how easily I lose my existing partition there on the hard drive. Also, maybe not. Anyway, something. Need to be careful there, especially if I put here efforts in development. Certainly don't want to lose years, and also Git. So yeah, I guess we touched all the topics. Totally amazing that you joined in your corner making Linux run on 3.15. Yeah, of course, not the first one, as people said on Twitter. They have done this a decade ago. Just that finding the of course, the people who have broken this and got this working are heroes back in the day. Totally amazing. I already some years ago met some of them. Always cool to know people, know your peers and friends and family, and they're of course the biggest heroes in the whole achievement here. But yeah, wish I would have spent less time getting that to work. But now we have it working, and yeah, then RSX and fun stuff also. So we have a couple of Linux bugs. So right, so even my task now is I'm one of the last people left standing here. Things are not amazing in Linux land, right? The new kernels don't boot for me, even on the FAT previously. The newest was 5.0, 5.1 and 5.2 didn't result in any. 5.1 was black screen output with nothing happening. 5.2 even resetted and rebooted. Certainly not amazing. But now we have two different things, but first I need to get something running on this. None of my kernel old or new didn't work, I repeat myself. So whatever's up with that, and then we need to get this working, and then because not everything is amazing there, so we need to figure out what is going on with the new kernels. Then there's also some kind of memory fragmentation leaking issue, because after a couple of network packets, a couple of hundred or thousand, we don't get this Ethernet not transmit packages. And so Ethernet booting and RSX and stuff. People ask why PS3. Why? So because I had in the basement and I wanted to make a YouTube video. I was also interested, so I stored this away with other OS working. After Sony started to take it away, I stored this with 2.20, 40, 50. It was in the storage for a decade, and mostly for the YouTube channel. I wanted to educate and entertain you, but I have it already, right? The only thing is now I spent a buttload of money on the DECR, but you can call this here like private collection of outstanding stuff, as they are rare, but otherwise YouTube entertainment. Also, I was curious and if this is nicer to use with more memory, but again, this is our official company PS3, so it continues to fulfill its purpose here. And why not? I mean, I have it here, I can use it. I can, although it consumes a little bit much energy, that is the only downside in terms of global warming and stuff, and saving here on stuff, aircon and electricity and stuff. But yeah, it's good in the winter, right? You can use it to heat in Central Europe, to heat your apartment and office in the winter. But aside from the energy use, you can install some solar panels. But then I have it, and then it's also, I like this kind of outstanding stuff. Why not? So I can use it like a thin client, right? The whole day, if I have this stuff more stable working again. And then it's also a nice lifestyle, in my opinion, too. You don't even use latest and greatest. I also like to sit with these outstanding pieces of technology, enjoy it on the desk, log in into my data center, run my email client, and could even log into your data center for web browsing. And people who even sell, it's even interesting, cell programming, we can do cell programming here on YouTube. Actually, I said this the other day, I would actually prefer, I find this programming of GPUs a little bit inconvenient nowadays with OpenCL and Vulkan. I would, because it's not as flexible and everything, especially in the first days of GPU, general purpose graphic processor unit programming, GPU, you usually had to trick everything in processing like textures, like only like matrix multiplying, like neural net. You simulated, hacked this together, like putting sound data in a texture, putting a neural network in a texture, and even today, I mean, the cell processors are more flexible programming, right? Although they consume quite some power and stuff, I would actually prefer to have rather a cluster. This is actually similar to what Intel has done with the previously, initially called Larrabee and later then rebranded as Xenon Phi or what? Oops. Ah, damn it, this was so much mixing keywords. And your housing is ready. So, yeah. Larrabee, yeah, so Intel Xeon Phi. So I would, although the Intel Xeon Phi was also maybe not the most successful, commercially successful, but I would actually prefer this very much in terms of flexible programming, because the cell, well, you needed a special compiler, but you could do this probably, there was, I think, in the end of GCC, and also the Intel Xeon Phi stuff, they were like specially extended, like Pentium P54 kind of cores from Pentium 100 kind of stuff with some single instruction multiple data extensions. And in my opinion, because you see with the NVIDIA, they don't publish specs. NVIDIA is a Nuevo, I probably still need to check the pronunciation. Driver is not amazing because people need to reverse engineering. I think for the future, we cannot continue in the future where this GPU stuff is not fully open, and if, of course, this massive parallel single instruction multiple data has this computational advantages that people mine Bitcoin and do image processing and everything, accelerate their applications in audio, artificial intelligence processing and everything, and maybe this kind of, although it was commercially successful in the PS3, but not in the Xeon Phi, but maybe such more general programmable GPU stuff would be more amazing future setup. By the way, I have here the video running. Yeah, so we can actually reboot. So let's sync this here and unmount. This is here in target. So we probably can try what happens if we reboot here this. Then you also see that this is not a fake. It's always nice to document this, otherwise people call bullshit anyway. Maybe we want to manual focus this also. Let's see, I also need something new to drink. So yeah, so this is old Petite boot. I have here I have only right now two working Petite boots. That is a newer one. This is of course optical media that I booted. Can we, or is it, no, we can't eject because it's mounted. Yeah, so this is that old Petite boot, and yeah, we don't have eject, but we probably can U-mount temp nmt. Yeah, now it. So that was a nice fine optical media from good old-fashioned days here, DVD RW. So now I see already coming, we don't have riser effects here. We are using everything, and then don't tell me this doesn't have a riser. Apparently maybe not, huh? So much to that fail. That we had grep. We have grep but not the risers. Yeah, so much to, that maybe was a reason why we had X4 on the other one, so much too. But we could of course just without network rsync make a second partition and copy this over. You will program, yeah, maybe we will program the SPE if we first the problem is, well, of course one day on YouTube live here we will just maybe another day. Let's mount this again. Why do we have so many of this? This is slightly strange, but whatever. We will most likely program also SPEs in another day. Also test this maybe, especially when we take a look on unlocking the 8s, maybe on one of those. Again, if someone has a spare slim 2500 for my testing needs, as more and more I might be becoming one of those last people who are maintaining this, and some slim to test would also be welcome. But now I need to, but I will now only copy this locally, not a big deal, make a second partition, and here with F is fdisk stuff. Ah, no. I had there, how much did I had? 32 gig or something. Where's my... no, my HTCP got... Ah, this is stupid graphical shit starting. This is why I out of range. What? First cylinder are first. Yeah, 32 gigs. Yeah, I will rsync this now off camera, and thanks for tuning in. I would need, I have a slim at home, so actually very theoretically if you want another slim we could also change, but only if yours is not totally scratched, because the one at home is, actually no, I think my wife, it was on the floor in the living room, and I think my wife often touched it with a vacuum, and when she, well, of course not me, I usually took care, but you know, other people in the family, they don't care about your precious IT stuff, so I think it, and so this are pristine, but the slim at home, actually I think it has some scratches on the plastic from touching it with the vacuum cleaner. But so because I have at home a 3000 something that is not custom firmwareable, I would want for testing, if I would want to support you with testing and getting everything working and such, that would be a 2500, I think is the last slim, one of the last slims that has a rebug with custom firmwareable rebug for me to other OS. Some software IBM that we can test the SPE speed. Yeah, there is software from IBM, but we thought we could. So, for example, what would be really cool, also in terms, I have this exact image. From all the projects we do here each and every day. Actually, maybe we should start here. MK, wrong keyboard. Now we started our own video because too many keyboards. So I have this exact image with this image processing, like image magic, just like faster, and of course not supporting so many stuff, but that what it's supported usually faster. PS3, and so we could actually try to port some algorithms, so we could add support for exact image and offloading the image processing filters, like blurring something or sharpening something, or maybe even JPEG decompression. That would be a fun project, by the way. PS3 MK, that should be that one, I guess. And yeah, that would be a fun project. And then you could have exact image as a really cool demonstration. Exact image, like exact image convert some file to another, or JPEG compressing something, and then it's offloading this to the SPEs and running this. This would certainly be super cool. And for all of this kind of fun stuff and all the other vintage retro SGI and fun stuff, you probably want to share, like, and subscribe. And make sure to stay connected. Mount dev SD PS3. Oh, wait a second. PS3 something. I guess. Yeah, so read speed. So this is an SSD, so not amazing. So that is really the speed of this. This is what I meant. Maybe we can optimize, but this is also, anyway, to be fair, I think they optimize this in the meantime. I think, well, not as much with the multi-queue command stuff that I said earlier, but at least maybe, actually we can skip over that for now. We don't need to that for. But yeah, I think maybe they optimized it a little bit, but not the multi-queue stuff. Maybe we check this another day also. So you see so many stuff to do, and this is why, if you wonder why do we try to make here one video and live stream, I need to build the YouTube audience a little bit. I hope that you also learn something of Linux internals and whatnot, or philosophical IT stuff, because to finance all the work, if you really wanted to continuously improve this stuff, RSX, Ethernet, and all this stuff, and by the way, maybe we disable verbose stuff here, because that is scrolling too much text, and then it is delaying that too much. So yeah, maybe PS5 comes with Cell together with Horizon. I don't really think that they will go back. But fun fact, of course, that Toshiba, IBM, there were Toshiba, IBM stuff. Not really sure if Toshiba used it in base stations, but at least IBM, I think the cell blade stuff on IBM, you could got with exactly the same kind of IBM cell stuff. So it's not like it was only PS3 gaming stuff, at least the professional cell blade stuff. As far as I know, I don't know if it's exactly the same silicon, if you have no details, but maybe, I think maybe it could be the same silicon, right? As far as I remember, maybe they binned them, and the high quality stuff they put into the IBM where like all 8 SPEs were working, and only those who maybe had defects they Sony got for cheaper or something. But again, if you remember details, leave them in the comments below. I now wait for the second rsync, because RiserFS, maybe another day we certainly. So this also, as the last shout out, by the way, totally amazing that so many people watch. It's of course funny, 27 people now when we finally want to end this live stream. Yeah, 4K video codec. So the problem with that is that it doesn't have a 4K HDMI out, right? So not even sure if you know the virtual, because 4K wasn't a thing. You can't even freely program the graphic mode. So even if on a good old-fashioned HDMI direct programmable transmitter, you could maybe get 4K with 30 Hertz. On the PS3, you for sure will not, unless you hack the hypervisor or something, because the hypervisor has an API to control the resolution. I'm pretty sure it most likely will not allow you to do 4K. So 4K is not the most outstanding. I think other stuff would already be more usable than that, unless you want 4K video broadcasting station. But anyway, the video codec, I can already tell you now, for all the other stuff, I promise you here, I will not do 4K video codec, because video codec is super huge work, and I will not spend my time optimizing parts of a video codec processing pipeline on the SPE. If you want to do that, be my guest, totally much welcome, thumbs up for that. But we will most likely do smaller educational things, because I'm not naive. I will know if you want to video codec on the cell, you most likely sit there a year or a month or a summer, Google Summer of Code project, or maybe you can apply for Google Summer of Code doing that kind of stuff. But I'm already satisfied if we do something. It's also, I think, more usable, right? Either Xorg stuff, graphic splitting stuff, or an emulator. So for example, it would probably be much more usable, and so nobody will use it, right? Unless you have a TV broadcasting station, then you have your specialized broadcasting modules anyway. So I think one task would be, if we would dump something on the SPE, not only exact image, because it would be amazing infrastructure project in any case, but then emulators, accelerating Amiga, QEMU, or a Nintendo 64, or this kind of fun stuff. Everything of that sort would certainly be 500 million times more amazing than video codec that you can't play with, I guess. But yeah, I hope you learned something, enjoyed this look and feel of those amazing stuff. The only thing that would look better if I probably would place them in between the SGI Octanes here or something. YouTube Studio, build up, you name it. I hope you learned something totally amazing that so many people joined here for this live session. We have 3,671 drop frames, 2.2% somewhere after the initial live streaming crap that was more amazing than later. You can't control the shared DOCSIS cable medium. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you want to complain to someone, then that would be Vodafone Cable Germany for delivering that 3671 drop frames. Thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. Totally amazing somehow. But again, you don't need to be worried that this becomes a PS3 channel. We have so many other stuff to do. Just that if I have this new stuff on my desk, then I usually want to get it working. And yeah, amazing to hear that you find it amazing and fantastic. Thanks for that. And yeah, wish I would be further, but yeah, it's a pity that, yeah, there you see, you think you just use riser, and then yeah, that was by didn't have riser. So another 20 minutes for that, I think, and then we see what is booting or not. I will report back as soon as we have something, and otherwise more fun stuff to come. And yeah, if someone of you wants to send patches and test stuff, totally welcome. Can't test and do everything on my own. And with that, it's time to say hope to see you soon for the next streams.